That was Sun Ambient. This is a Harry Bertoia podcast. Hello, I'm Celia Bertoia, the daughter of Harry Bertoia, and today I'm going to talk to you about sunbursts and dandelions. Harry left Italy as a 15-year-old in 1930. The only time that he returned to his native land was in 1957. He got a Graham Foundation grant out of Chicago that allowed him to do whatever he wanted with $10,000. So he took advantage of that and traveled back to Italy. Look at the culture and visit his homeland. He got so energized being in Italy and seeing his relatives and viewing all the beautiful sculptures and the Michelangelos. The sun was shining. He just got lots of energy. And when he returned back to his Pennsylvania shop, he said that this energy wanted to erupt in sunburst forms. So the first of these sunburst forms that he experimented with were very rugged and almost brutalist trees, heavy branches, spheres of these thick branches poking out. So in 1958, he actually created one of these trees for the World's Fair that was held in Brussels that year for the U.S. Pavilion. The golden tree, as it was called, and another piece as well, was set at the Brussels World's Fair alongside of pieces by Alexander Calder and Isamu Noguchi, which was quite an honor. The dandelions, in their more refined form, slowly evolved from these rugged trees, and the dandelions were much more delicate. The source of inspiration for the delicate metal dandelions was, of course, the dandelion flowers in nature gone to seed. And I think we must have had a good crop of dandelions that year. Nature was a major influence for Bertoia throughout his career. It came in all varieties of style. Some were made of stainless steel, some were simple bronze. There were gilt, gold-plated dandelions, which sparkled in the sun, but did have a tendency to lose their gold plating, which was always problematic to repair. But the sizes range from as small as about 2 feet to as large as over 10 feet. There were several commissions. There was one at Perpetual Savings in the 60s that was 10 feet tall. In 1963, or actually by the time it was displayed, it was 1964, at the World's Fair that was held in New York City at the Kodak Pavilion. There were 7 dandelions in this fountain array, and they were just gorgeous. They were gold-plated, and people would gather there and have their picnic lunches. Really a beautiful array. Most of those went to RIT, the Rochester Institute of Technology, where they are having trouble trying to figure out how to re-gilt them, because the way Harry would gild the steel wire was in small parts. The way a dandelion is made, it's quite simple, but takes a skilled hand. Usually there's just a thin stem of a rod, and that goes directly into a rock base, a stone base, usually granite or marble, and that stone is drilled to a very precise diameter so that the rod can slip neatly in there. And the bases have to be at least 4 or 5 or 6 inches tall so that they will contain and keep that rod straight. Now, there was no adhesive added at all. It was just a very snug hole, and the stem went right in there. If a collector has had a dandelion for a long time, it may be stuck in there because of humidity or things accidentally being spilled, whatever other environmental reasons. But they were just directly set into the stone. Then the stem goes up into a globe, a central globe, and oftentimes that was sort of a grid type of globe. And from that globe, which might be, for a smaller dandelion, might just be 6 inches in diameter, and then the branches were attached to that globe. Each branch or sprig consisted of one stem and then many wires attached to that stem in usually a circular pattern. Each of those stems would be attached, and then they'd all be spaced perfectly, engineered so that finally it would create a perfect sphere of all these branches coming out. It was at this point that the gilding process could happen. Each branch or sprig, which at that point was just maybe a foot or two long, would be dipped into the vat of water that contained gold particles. This process is called electroplating because then they just zap it with electricity and the stainless steel branch would attract those gold particles, and then it had gold flakes on the surface. So that's how he did that. Now, when they were 10 feet tall, you can't exactly dip a 10-foot dandelion into a vat of water. There just aren't vats large enough. So that is the problem with re-gilding a dandelion. You have to either deconstruct the whole thing or find someone who's got a huge vat, like a big cattle waterer or something. So it is an issue. Sometimes Harry put tips on the ends of the branches. They might be horizontal, sometimes just little buds. So various types of tips on the branches. And my sister Lesta can attest to the amazing detail that went into these dandelions. One of her jobs when she worked at the shop for a summer or two was to clean and lay out the wires in sets so that Harry could quickly pick them up and weld them into the branches. The wires came in a wooden crate from the metal suppliers, and they were often coated with oil or kind of a greasy substance to keep them from rusting or from getting dirty. So Lesta had to wipe off and clean each of these wires. Now, for a smaller dandelion, for example, we have a 5-foot dandelion here that is on loan from Knoll, the furniture company. They were kind enough to give us a long-term loan on this beautiful bronze dandelion. And I counted the branches and tried to figure mathematically how many pieces of wire were in this one 5-foot dandelion. And as close as I could come, there are about 20,000 pieces of wire in this one dandelion that are all welded or brazed together. In a larger dandelion, say 8 feet, it could be 80 or 90,000 separate wires, and they all had to be handled. First cleaned, cut to the right size, welded to the initial branch, then welded to the globe. So this was a long, labor-intensive process, but the results were beautiful. The market for the dandelions has really come a long way. Back around 2000, you could still probably get a dandelion for maybe $90,000. And that would have been one of the higher prices for a Bertoia sculpture at that time. Well, because they're such a favorite of collectors, their prices have just risen astronomically. In the teens, the 2015, prices were going up into the $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 range. And just recently at Sotheby's in 2021, a new record, all-time record for any Bertoia sculpture was hit when they sold a stainless steel 82-inch dandelion for $1.9 million. Now, this was a special dandelion because Harry had given it to Florence Knoll on the occasion of her second wedding to Harry Hood Bassett. It was a wedding gift directly from the artist to Shue, as they called her. And that attests to the wonderful relationship that they had. They never really saw each other that often, once every few years at the most, after the chairs were produced. But Harry was always grateful to the Knowles for having helped him with the chair designs, and it really got his name out into the public eye. So that dandelion in particular would almost have celebrity status. Now, I discovered later that the purchaser of that dandelion, she didn't even know about the history. So she was going simply on the pure beauty of the piece. And I don't blame her. It is a gorgeous piece. So that is the story of the dandelions. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can always find out more information at harrybertoia.org. Thank you for listening. And again, that's harrybertoia.org.